Economics tends to be seen as a science closely related to mathematics. The economist is often seen as a kind of mathematician oriented to the social sciences, who constructs theories about social behavior following a mathematical logic. Economics is often associated with an indeterminate and misunderstood science, which deals with essential issues but fails to make practical sense. With a high complexity given the high mathematical theoretical component that is implicit in it. Well, the origin and essence of economics is far removed from these ideas. The two most famous and well-known economists are Adam Smith and Karl Marx. Both authors do not have in their works reasoning based on or delimited by mathematical theories. They are works that anyone without knowledge of mathematical theory can understand perfectly well. Economics was born as a science that brings sociology closer to administration and management. It was born with the vocation of making companies and governments more efficient, creating economic theories based on simple reasoning and common sense. Economic science was born after the publication of Adam Smith's The Wealth of Nations and developed with classic authors such as Jean-Baptiste Say, David Ricardo, Thomas Malthus, John Stuart Mill, and Karl Marx. These authors try to reflect on how wealth should be administered, how prices should be established, or how the economy in general works and should function. What the economists were dealing with in their works were critical ideas about the ethical, moral and social principles that companies and governments could have in their activities. But we cannot forget that we are victims of our time. All this birth of the economic science takes place in a historical period in which there was a social revolution, iconized in the French Revolution. The social class of the nobility was no longer the only powerful and wealthy social class. The social class of the bourgeoisie had power and money, but was pushing for the institutional recognition and equal rights possessed by the nobility. In order to achieve this social change, the critical intellectual attitude, reflection and predisposition to change played a major role. And writings and works rethinking the way in which governments and companies managed their activity, as well as all aspects of the economy in general, tended to be important and influential. However, the social revolution triumphed and the bourgeoisie ended up being part of the social class with the greatest influence in society. Then the space for reflection and critical attitude on the economy and society was not accompanied neither by the support, nor by the power and influence it had been having. And neither were the works and writings in favor of reflection on business and government administration and management. They no longer had the capacity to become strong against the fearful nobility, and the bourgeoisie no longer needed any more revolutions. In this context, neoclassical economics was born, that economics associated with mathematics where mathematics is instrumentalized as a shield, a smokescreen or glass ceiling that serves as a barrier to entry for access to its knowledge. The works of economists begin to have an important component of mathematical theory that limits the possibility of being understood and criticized by a large part of the population. Laws, theories, ideas and decision-making are justified on the basis of reasoning deduced from mathematical models which, since the variables to be considered are limited, tend to be of little relevance in their form and content. Criticism and reflection in economic works that argue in favor of the improvement of the welfare and social prestige of the proletarian class are redirected towards the disaster box of the reactionary politics of the humble and away from the scientific economics of the wealthy. This void of reflection and criticism in this science is filled by mathematical economics, which, misunderstood and sterile, monopolizes everything that is understood as economics. To associate economics and mathematics is nothing more than to associate economics with something that makes it difficult to understand. It favors the assumption of certain methods and policies as a dogma, as a precept that is difficult to understand and therefore difficult to discuss. Curiously enough, this is the antithesis of what gave birth to economics as a science.